Hey, everybody. Welcome to Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I am so excited to be here. It is Tuesday, September 8th. We had a nice Labor Day weekend where we all chilled. I hope you did too. Hope you spent time with family and had a nice, relaxing 3-day weekend to recharge your batteries. We are back and at it right now on a Tuesday. I got a phenomenal guest today coming out, Roman Zelichenko. You probably know him if you're on LinkedIn at all and you're in the global mobility or immigration communities. Fantastic influencer, tech founder, visionary. I love to just riff on ideas with this guy. So I'm so happy he came back to join us on the show. Had a phenomenal talk the first time he was on. Can't wait to do it again and maybe kind of go deeper on some of the topics and some of the emerging trends. So love to do that. So just hang tight and kind of join here. Go ahead and leave a like or a comment in the comments. Give yourself a shout out. Let us know you're there. Also, before we get started, I want to go ahead and promote the t-shirts we're doing right now. So we're doing t-shirts in conjunction with Move for Hunger right now. There's a picture of those t-shirts. They have a metallic foil on the front, so they are super flashy, super bling blanging over here. You can buy a Love and Relo t-shirt, just a $35 donation to Move for Hunger. There is the URL at the bottom. The URL at the, I was going to get my finger on the screen. The URL at the bottom right there, tinyurl.com/love and relo t-shirt, singular, love and Relo t-shirt. Right there, $35 or more will get you that t-shirt. We're also going to be doing a telethon this Friday since it is Hunger Action Month. Myself and Tanya Maritini from Expedia Group are co-hosting the first Love and Relo Move for Hunger Action Month telethon. We got all sorts of people going to be on that. That's going to be fantastic. So make sure you tune in on Friday. We've also got Gustavo Perez from BGRS coming up tomorrow. We've got Meredith Kennedy from DwellWorks coming up on Thursday. So it's a great lineup. So without further ado, though, I want to bring the headliner out, my guest, my friend and fellow LinkedIn and global mobility influencer, Roman Zelichenko. How are you doing, Roman?
What's going on? Doing well. So happy to be back here and excited to chat with you again.
Yeah, man, dude, like honestly, like after our first talk, which was like probably months ago.
Yeah.
And I just felt so energized. And I felt like the first time we talked that like we connected and I got to know you in a way and I felt so validated. In fact, there was something you said on that show. You're like, what you just said, I felt that in my soul. And if I ever do an intro like montage, I'm clipping that piece and I'm putting it in my intro because I loved it so much.
I love that. That's amazing. Yeah, it was, it's one of those things. I think we talked a lot about branding and marketing and LinkedIn and just using it for growth. And it's one of those things where once you realize how powerful it is, you just become what's the word when you go around and preach it to everybody in the streets.
You become oh gosh, what's the word? Janet, hit me up. What's the word? Not an ambassador, but a evangelist. An
evangelist. Yes, thank you. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's kind of like, man, that gets to me. Sometimes I get on client calls and I just go way over, and then I'm the one apologizing, even though it's my time and like technically I'm not getting paid for the extra 25 minutes, but I'm like, but I just have to tell you this last thing about LinkedIn, why it's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, isn't that when you know that you're doing something that you need to be doing, when you can't stop talking about it and then people actually find it interesting enough that they'll pay you for that?
I think so. I mean, I've been lucky enough to be in that position, both with immigration technology and now with sort of the marketing side, but through LinkedIn specifically for the immigration and global mobility folks, I guess. It's just like, it's like when you realize that there's something in your industry that's untouched or untapped and you see it and a few other people see it, but the people who see it or are using it or benefiting from it aren't putting the energy to spread it. So again, this was why I left the practice. I could have just stayed working as a lawyer and built my own LinkedIn presence or whatever else, but I wanted to actually leave leave being an immigration lawyer and spread the word of the thing that I thought is really useful for our industry rather than actually being, practicing in the industry. So
you left being a lawyer to be a LinkedIn evangelist? Is
Not
that what
quite.
you like threw
Not-
like to use the Jesus parable? You threw down your net and went and became a fisher of men. Is that what's going on?
Not quite, but it sort of happened that way. I mean, I left the practice, right, to be in tech, right, to build a tech solution for immigration, specifically for immigration lawyers in the U.S. But then through that journey, I just like stumbled upon. I was already using LinkedIn for many years, but I stumbled upon the content creation side of it because that's how I grew initially. You know, my business got it out there, and I was just like, this is insane. Why isn't everybody on this 24 hours a day? I mean, reasonably within work.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I love it because I'm the same way. I'm like hooked on it. And we're gonna talk about, is it good? Is it bad to be hooked on it? Is there too much of a good thing? Give us some parameters and guidelines, and I want to hear your thoughts on all that for all the people that are out there right now who might be watching, but they actually want to be creating or whatever. So anyway, let's go ahead and check in with people real quick here. I'm getting a little feedback there from the sound. Let's check in here. Sandra Clary coming into us. Looking forward to hearing Roman again. Awesome. Sandra's a perfect example of somebody, right, who I did not really know Sandra before she became so active in the comments. And then I got to know her. And then in real life, we got to know each other well enough that we actually started collaborating together and kind of doing business in a way. And I mean, that kind of stuff happens. Like, that's real stuff. It's not like back in the day, and I'm going off on a tangent. I want to hear your thoughts, right? So back in the day, it was like, oh, we need a social media kid, who can post on Facebook for us, but it doesn't really have ROI, and therefore we're not going to invest in it and specialize in it.
Yeah.
What have you seen as far as the growth and the evolution in that mindset?
I mean, I think the platform just matters, right? I think.
What do you mean when you say the platform matters?
So LinkedIn tends to be more of a B2B platform where this is common knowledge in a sense. If you're from the business development perspective on LinkedIn, you're a professional selling something to other businesses or professionals. You're not selling t-shirts. You're not selling, sunglasses.
I'm selling t-shirts, Roman.
You're fundraising through t-shirt. That's true. Buy a t-shirt, guys. Love and Relo t-shirt. Your donation will go to Move for Hunger. It is great. Please do it. But your main business isn't t-shirts, right? So that's the kind of thing where you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, you're scrolling, you might see an ad or you might see some kind of fun content. It's more of an impulse buy where you see something, you're like, oh, cool, this is something I need, really low price point, and you go for it. On LinkedIn, if you're selling anything, whether it's consulting services or you're as a lawyer or moving services, relocation, that is probably a big, sale that you're going to be trying to put together. You're selling
big ticket item right here. We're not transactional, but we're more relational, contractual, big ticket items.
Right. And so if that's the case, that's inherently not an impulse buy. And so you can't have a one-way sort of content strategy because you don't build relationships by shouting at people. You build relationships actually by maybe starting a conversation, but more so listening to people, which is probably the opposite of shouting. And then, you kind of give them information based on what you're hearing that they need or interested in. So I think on LinkedIn, if you can't just hire someone to put out generic one directional LinkedIn posts because they will not do well.
Yes, I know.
They just won't do well. It's not even about that people won't respond to them because they probably won't like and comment, but the algorithm sees that no one's liking and commenting, and it's just pushing it out to fewer and fewer people. That's a waste of time and money, I think.
Give me an example of what you see that doesn't work, okay? Because there's people watching out here right now. I guarantee you 90% of the people that are watching this right now, their company produces the kind of content that you're talking about right now. What do people need to stop doing right now?
So, okay. So one thing that typically, and I don't want to be super prescriptive about this, but something that typically does not work is, and I'm going to say from an immigration law firm perspective, because that's just what I know best. An immigration law firm, whether it's a founder or through the company, an employee or through the company page, they put out a post that says, plugging just like saying, we're an immigration law firm and we handle asylum cases. Call us at the number below and we'll get back to you, right? Or whatever, like something like that. That's basically a pure advertisement.
Yeah,
that does not work. because nobody's calling you from LinkedIn. Like nobody's calling you from a billboard either. We ignore advertising, period, but especially on LinkedIn. But something even that attempts to provide information but just misses the mark could be, a blog post that's like, here's what an H-1B visa is, and it's just the link. So the post would say, do you want to know what an H-1B visa is? Click here's a link to our blog post, and it links to the blog post. Inherently, it sounds like you're providing valuable content. But from the post perspective, the post itself is just like a redirect to an article, to a blog somewhere else. So the post itself doesn't really provide value. It doesn't start a conversation. It's asking the person to take steps to to go to a blog somewhere else. And so those posts tend to be, you don't need a genius to write a post that says, here's an article about, this thing, click on it.
But you do need kind of a genius to write the blog post, right?
Yes, correct. You do need a genius to write the blog post.
Yeah. And so that's also where I think that people fall down too, right? Is that they're going to hire these, and we're going to get to the comments. Keep the comments coming. I'd love to hear questions and comments specifically about what Roman's saying, about what I'm saying right now. If you disagree, let me know. I will tell you why you're wrong. No, I'm just kidding. No, but we'll incorporate all that into the conversation, right? No, but what I see is companies say, okay, first, this is the evolution. This is the evolution of social media use. It doesn't exist. Okay, fine. It exists. I have a profile whether I like it or not. Therefore, fine, get some, $25,000 a year kid out of college or an intern to be our social media person, okay? And then we realize that nobody's engaging with the content. Fine, we're going to hire a marketing firm who's going to do our SEO, and they're also going to write blogs for us, okay? And then you get these whitewashed generic blogs that are stacked with keywords but don't actually resonate with anybody that knows anything about the business.
Right.
So it might as well not even be there anyway, because it's not ranking in the first 5 pages of Google. It's not getting people to click and engage with the brand. It's not thought leadership. So then how do we take it from that phase, where I think a lot of us probably are, right? And then go to the next phase, which I think is kind of where you're dwelling and where I'm trying to dwell, right?
You're dwelling.
Which is engaging with people like in a real meaningful human way.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a loaded question. So number one, I think, and again, I'm going to focus on immigration lawyers, but this can be from anyone. In the U.S., forget about overseas. In the U.S., there are 15,000, probably 20,000 immigration lawyers, let's say, U.S. immigration lawyers, maybe a little bit more.
That's crazy. That's a lot.
Right? Yeah, it's a good amount for that niche, right? I mean, there are a ton of lawyers. Everywhere you look, there's a damn lawyer. Guilty. But, so the one thing that I'll say is that, with immigration lawyers, I think a lot of what I hear is especially small firms are a little bit confused or challenged as to where they want to focus. And so they become generalists, sometimes because that's what comes their way. Other times because they're not sure what they're great at, or maybe they're afraid to niche down. So I think the beginning part, what I do very often when I talk to folks is like, well, before we get into how to do content and LinkedIn, what is your brand? What are you putting out? What are you really good at, right? When you could figure out what you're really good at, and you could say, again, for an immigration lawyer, you could say, I only work with asylum seekers, right? Or I only work with a certain type of visa. That might sound scary, but when you meet people who do like one type of visa and they have a big business. So when you have that sort of really specific brand down, at least in the beginning, it's super easy to put out content that's not generic, because you are not generic as a firm. You are very specific. You do a very specific thing. And so your content would be, hey, are you a foreign national looking to get into the US as an asylum seeker? Here are 10 things you need to know, or like maybe even an asylum seeker from Venezuela right now, or an asylum seeker from, another country, like that specific. Putting out content that's that specific will inherently provide value. And I think that the specificity also is your street cred, right? In this business, right? The fact that you can go deep and nuanced on a topic about Venezuela to US visas, right? Mm-hmm. Like, because people will say visa, want to get a visa, then they'll say want to get a visa to the US, and they'll say want to get a visa from South America. But if you can talk about how to get a visa from Caracas to New York
and the process and the people and the offices and the whatever, you're going to be so specific, and A, it's going to rank, and B, it's going to automatically, just at the eye test, I'm going to say this person right here knows exactly where I am right now.
Yep. 100%. And so when you do that, I mean, I think the original question was like, how do we create content that works on the platform? Once you have that brand and once you have that specific, value proposition in terms of what you provide, when you put out blog posts on LinkedIn, or, on your website that are super specific, they actually answer a question of a small demographic of people, but that demographic, to your point, will be engaged. Now on LinkedIn, if they're engaged, that means they're probably commenting, right? Like they are hopefully right now in this episode, or, they're engaging on your article or on your post. And so when they're doing that, not only are you, let's say you're responding to those comments, which I always recommend everybody out there, respond to your comments on your posts. I promise you. It just, not only does it build relationship, it gives you another comment on your post. It builds that algorithmic sort of credibility.
100%. Low hanging fruit. Talking to people that are already talking to you, like in real life, is an automatic low hanging fruit on LinkedIn as well, right? And I think that one of the things, and I want to talk about this, but first we got to comment to the people that are commenting to us. I want to talk about how LinkedIn is exactly like real life and stop making it more complicated than it needs to be. So in keeping with that, Rory Ramirez, good afternoon, Ben, Roman, and everyone else from Mini Moves and Broadview. What up, Rory? Sandra Clary, plus you and your content need to have earned engagement from others by, wait for it, engaging with others.
Dum.
Right? Captain Obvious to the rescue. But I mean, this is obvious stuff right now, Then the info is more likely to be seen as a conversation to be joined.
Absolutely.
That's a perfect example. I'm going to continue conversing, because I want people to know that this is a conversation to be joined. Stephanie Ortiz Minami. Hi, Ben and Roman. What's up, Stephanie? She's got some immigration background. Celeste from Colorado. Jack. What's up, Jack? Your key comment is building the relationship. Jack, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how that is best done on LinkedIn. What are some of the sterling examples that you would cite? I'd love to hear that. Let's see here. Stephanie, I'd love to hear from you what you find on LinkedIn that is valuable to you in your actual as a practitioner. Sandra Clary, I'd love to hear about your journey as well, and more of these comments as well. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to start calling people out directly with specific questions for them. Olivia Roman, preaching the good word. Olivia is another great example from a corporate communication standpoint, what she's doing, right? Olivia, I'd love to hear your thoughts as well and more your firsthand experience. Henry Dussois, hello from Bordeaux. Henry, tell me about the wine, buddy. Gino from NYC, moving people out there in the streets. Appreciate you, Gino. Let's see, Charles Beatty. What's up, Charlie? Let's see, Janaina. Hey, guys, here from Rio, Brazil. Always great and inspiring to hear from Roman.
Hey, Janaina.
Look at that. That's awesome. Good to see my Brazilian peeps here. Massimo from Belgium. Love that. What's up, Massimo? Pierre from Switzerland. I'd love to hear from the Europeans. What's going on in Europe on LinkedIn and things? I mean, what are you seeing? What's engaging to you? Susan checking in from New York. Fernando Donadon from Brazil. What's up, Fernando? Fernando, I got a surprise for you later, buddy. Came through for you. You're the Love and Relo weather specialist talking about Jamie Massler, I bet. Ben Sukia from London. The two kings of LinkedIn. Look forward to the chat, guys. Ben's a great guy. Love that.
Yeah, I know.
Sandra giving me the word I need. Evangelist. Gerald from Boston. Christy, hi from Pittsburgh. Looking forward to some online branding tips. Christy, what are one or two questions you would love to hear about online branding? And this is actually a really good segue, because Christy is a person with a fantastic personal brand in real life. And now, how do you translate your real life personal brand into an online personal brand? And we're going to jump off with Christy right here. So, Roman, what are your tips there?
I mean, part of it is there's a barrier that people put up between their human life and their online life. And I think it's a little bit of a skill, or it's a little bit of a muscle that you have to build in order to sort of really convey who you are on LinkedIn. I think I try, at least. everything from using emojis to being a little bit less stiff with your writing. And how many people do you meet who, are very cordial and or not even cordial, very professional and buttoned up in their emails. And then you like meet them at the conference, and it's not even about like going out for drinks. Just generally, they're like chill, super laid back. And you're like, wow, you're not how I expected you to be just based on your emails or things like that. Or you're like your picture. I mean, all of these things they reflect something about you. I tell folks when, we're working on their LinkedIn profile, for example, that banner image right above your head, it can be the banner that says your firm name, but it can also be something that says something about you, right? Because remember, if you're on LinkedIn a lot, you're going to be on the platform too. So you want to feel good when you enter your profile and look at it 17 times a day. You want to feel good. Do you want a picture of your childhood like neighborhood, or maybe a beach you really loved, or you skydiving or surfing or rock climbing, or like?
So is that appropriate? I'm going to ask the question people might be thinking right now. Is skydiving pictures and beach pictures as your LinkedIn header photo appropriate? I hate that question.
Yeah,
appropriate.
I think it is. And when I say beach photos, I don't mean a picture of you lounging in the beach, which is maybe more appropriate for LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook. I mean a picture of a beach. Let's say you grew up on the beach, or you love the beach, or whatever.
Shout out to Ben and Mauritius.
Yeah, like exactly, right? It's one of those things where it's appropriate. What's appropriate is also, I don't want to get too philosophical about it, but what's philosophical. What's appropriate is also based on what people agree is appropriate, right? So clothing that used to be inappropriate 30, 40, 50 years ago is, on par for business attire right now, right? So
case in point, I feel borderline inappropriate when I wear a 3-piece suit in the office or on a Zoom call and everybody else is working from home and they're chilling in like their ball cap or whatever, which is great. That's what I wear from too. But now I feel inappropriate. So to answer your, to piggyback on what you just said, like it flips so quick like that.
And it almost flipped in their direction. I mean, I posted about this yesterday, but this didn't work. I mean, it still doesn't work in some places, but this whole thing didn't work for me in my previous jobs. And I'm just like,
the gorgeous man bun.
Yeah,
right now.
The man bun and the beard. Was it appropriate to be a lawyer? Probably not. Was it appropriate to be a client-facing lawyer? Even less so, right? Unless you're your own law firm, and then clients see you and you're just that. They don't judge you. They just want you for your expertise. And now all of a sudden the question is, who's right? And who determines appropriateness, right?
And now you stand out in a room full of 20,000 U.S. immigration attorneys.
Correct. And so that's the secondary benefit of it, is by being quote unquote inappropriate. And I mean this in a way of, like you're not offending people or upsetting people, but you might just be, if everyone's, if the appropriate attire is black and white and you come in with like a rainbow suit, I mean, is it inappropriate? I guess so. But at the same time, you're the person with the rainbow suit, and you better believe people are going to remember you, right? I mean, this is. I'm actually this week on my live show on Friday. I'm going to have, I guess, a quick plug. I'm going to have Angela Paparelli, who's a partner at immigration partner at Seyfarth Shaw. He's just the godfather of immigration law, or one of them. He's just such a great, interesting person, and like he is a fellow plebeian. Oh, sorry, thespian. Wrong word, if you will. And we both like kind of nerded out about theater at some point, and we're going to talk about how theater relates to marketing and how standing out is really a huge marketing tactic. But I think to bring it back here to appropriateness, put a picture up that makes you feel good about yourself. I mean, the baseline is don't offend anybody, don't be a sexist or racist or anything like that. But be yourself. And if that means that everyone else has a picture of their law firm name and you have a picture of like, again, a big wave crashing in a beach that means something to you, that's probably going to start a discussion at some point that will bring business to you more than somebody else.
I would even go further about offending people. And I would say if you're not offending somebody, you're probably not trying hard enough, to be honest with you, because I know that I've offended people in my life, but I'm also very proud of the work that I've done. Right. And I also know that based on just my community and what people have told me, that I've connected with people in a more real and authentic way in real life via online life than I think most other people have. And I think I couldn't have done that without occasionally offending a couple of people. Mm-hmm. What I rely on what I rely on the fact is that people understand my heart and they know where I'm at and they know where I'm coming from and they know what I'm trying to do. And hopefully they forgive me.
Yeah.
But even if they don't, I think the juice is worth the squeeze. And
it's a great point. I guess, yeah, I mean, agreed. You're going to always offend somebody in some way, especially the bigger you get, the more people listen to you. I think, again, if we want to talk about semantics, perhaps maybe there's a certain level of offense that there's a line you don't cross. There's many lines you don't cross. But I could be offending somebody. I mean, it's stupid, but I could be offending somebody with my hair right now. And they might be like, this is preposterous. I'm not listening to this person's professional,
for a second longer will I tolerate this man bun.
I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but there are probably at least 7 people on LinkedIn right now who would feel that way. Am I offending them? Technically speaking,
so.
Yes.
Get off the program. If you're upset with Roman's hair, get out of here.
Right. So like that level of offense, I agree with you. I mean, again, there's some level of offense that you would never have crossed and I would never cross and nobody really should. But at the same time, I hear you. Like there are people, I mean, again, not going in this direction, but if we think about like a lot of news programs, they are polarizing very much on purpose because that brings ratings. And so do they know they're offending people? Yes, but that's part of their business.
Let's go ahead and honor some of these comments. Let's see here. Michael Quigley, bling and reload. I love that. I love it. So hilarious. Sandra Clary, I'm still on a high from Friday's show. What an amazing and inspiring show, talking about how we can support food insecurity and food waste in this country. Gabby Bachhuber, Ben, and Roman, I'm here for all the immigration tech and LinkedIn strategy talk. Excited for the show. I want to, oh gosh, this is such a meaty topic. We got so much to cover. We got so many questions coming in. I promise all of you, I will do all of these questions and comments. Gabby was on the show, I think it was last week. It was fantastic. Yep. She's truly fantastic. And I got to know her through the show and the comments. She is a huge fan of immigration news on LinkedIn. And 2 things. 1, she brought up, how she uses LinkedIn, which is to say, she looks for the tips and tricks and subtle announcements and indications that are coming out about news and changes in immigration policy and process, and that's how she stays cutting edge. And one of the things we were kind of talking about, and I want your opinion as a tech founder in the immigration space who also runs an incredible Slack channel that called GMI Rocket, and we'll talk about that as well. So many different directions with you, Roman, I can go. But my thought is, I wanted your opinion. Is there a place or an application for immigration professionals to log and register their successes and failures on the visa process within different offices around the world, different visa types, different candidate types, to create a big data set that people could then go back and look at and say, if I apply for this type of visa in this type of office, even down to the person perhaps who reviews the application, I have a higher success rate?
I mean, it's a really great question. I don't have a super good answer to it because I think that starts to overlap with just the idea of big data, let's say, in our industry, and whether or not we can ever have a clean enough and big enough data set to make meaningful and analyze it in a meaningful way. Number one, this isn't this is not a direct answer, but number one, I would say, well, what information does the government have? Because for an immigration lawyer or practitioner to come back and say, I just filed this type of visa with this consulate for this type of person, whatever, they're kind of doing double work. They're inputting that work into some kind of database. Realistically, the government should have all that data. So my question would be, what does the government have? A lot of times, at least our government, which is fairly open with some stuff, they have data sets that are either just not cleaned up or they're obscure somewhere and really only Forbes does the work to dig into it, but it still exists. So
through like a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information Act request.
So you could do a FOIA request, but there are some databases that are public. They're like a 20-page PDF and you have to scrape it. It's just not very convenient, but it's there. The question is, who knows about it, right? There's a lot of great public information. We just it's not out there in the open.
Sure.
So that's the first place I would look. As far as, to answer your direct question, should there be a place where, it's obviously much more anecdotal. like no lawyer will ever have, I mean, a lawyer who's been practicing for 20 years might have a data set of, for a very particular visa type from a very particular country, they'll have a data set of 30, 40 instances, right? Over their 20 years of practice, like how many times are they really getting someone from that one specific country? You know, and again, to our earlier point, that's because they might be doing all sorts of immigration. If you're someone who does a specific type of immigration, you actually are the data center for that type of visa, right?
Sure.
That's why people go to you. You're a specialist.
Sure. Well, and the reason, and one of the things that this came up too, because I'm connecting Gabby's conversation to a conversation we had last year in Detroit, right? And Detroit is actually a border city with Canada, with Windsor, Canada. And a lot of automotive people here employ people that work in, or that live in Windsor, and they commute over pre-COVID, and they would come work here, and they would get stopped at the border, and they would ask them, what do you do, right? And depending on how they answer that question would sometimes depend on whether they would even get through the border, right? And so they would tell these stories, these professionals, global mobility folks and immigration folks would tell these stories about, well, you know, if you see Johnny, he's going to deny you, but if you wait until 3 when his shift changes and Jerry comes on, usually you can get through okay, and make sure you say XYZ. And I'm like, what? It's like that? Like, that's wild to me that even there's that much, you know, frankly, variation in the way that these laws are applied. And that got me to thinking, well, how the hell am I supposed to know if I'm waiting for Jerry or Johnny and what time to go and what stop to go to and what stall to go to? And like, how would I know that? But I think if there's like a place where people could post that information, it might be interesting.
Yes, I agree with you. I mean, to kind of mention a little bit of what I've been working on that you just kind of brought up. So the GMI rocket, GMI.
Talk about that. People need to hear about that.
So GMI Global Mobility Immigration, I created, it really was born out of this idea that I had all these thoughts and ideas about LinkedIn specifically for our industry. And it was hard to like find people to talk to about it. And so I had a small group of people, and I was like, why don't I just start a LinkedIn channel where we can all chat? LinkedIn's way better than, I think, WhatsApp. It's better than Facebook groups. It's better than LinkedIn groups. It's a lot more versatile. So I created this Slack channel, and just eventually started inviting more people to it. Now there's a little bit over 100. There are a little bit over 100 people, immigration lawyers, global mobility folks, immigration tech founders, et cetera. And the thing that we talk about most there is LinkedIn strategy, and we all kind of share tips. But, you know, there are other channels. There was a time where in the very beginning of COVID, there was a channel I created for immigration updates, and people were sharing, to your point, broader, but generally speaking, immigration updates from different parts of the world. Maybe there could be a channel for Canada-US cross-border tips, right? And that you can say like, ignore Jerry, but go for Ben, right? Because Ben's going to be
a nice guy.
He's a nice guy. He's a good guy, you know? So maybe it's, you know, maybe it's that kind of a thing. But yeah, so like that was kind of my vision. Is that the right place? You know, because I love the community and people in it are great. I would say yes. But you know, can it then be somehow digitized and the data points pulled and create some sort of a database? I don't know. I don't know if that's ever scalable on the lawyer's side. That really should be happening from the government's perspective.
Okay, great answer. Makes sense. Jamie checking in from Mississippi. Olivia checking in. Simon Johns from the UK. It's gin and tonic time somewhere.
Nice.
Chris Roberts from Aaron.
Yes.
Yeah. Chris saying what's up there. Molly checking in from Jacksonville. We got Gerald. All right, cool. So listen, we got some other questions or comments here as well. Let's see here. All right, people asking if it's snowing. Okay, got a lot of stuff going on here. All right, so Jack answered my question before about the personal aspect. Reaching out for a quick intro. So he's answered my question before about what does he mean by making it personal. And he's talking about reaching out for a quick intro, not to sell, but just to learn more about what they do. It's not easy, but there's many of us that are cordial to accept. Have you found that, Roman? People
don't reach out to sell ever. I actually had a long discussion with someone the other day. I've done this a couple of times where someone reaches. I've actually converted clients. My favorite thing to do, where someone's like, "Hey, you know," they see immigration and then they just send me a thing and they're like, you know, no note, right? And I accept it because I see they're somewhat related to the industry. And then immediately I get a 7-paragraph message, and it's like, hey, totally uncontextual. and selling me something in the immigration space. And then my response is like, no, thanks. But does this work? Like, does this really work? And I mean, I'm not mean or rude, but I'm very honest. And I'm like, I'm just letting you know, you're messaging me. You clearly didn't look at my profile because I don't do this, what you're trying to sell me for. And so that tells me immediately you didn't look, number one. Number two, you have no idea what my needs are. You're just assuming that I need something. My instinct is to not want to do work with you. And that's like my first instinct. My second instinct is that you're annoying and I don't ever want to do work with you in the future. And so I'm always like, I'm genuinely curious. Does this work for you? And I've had some people be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. You're so right. And I'm like, it's sales 101, man. Like for a sale like this, you just don't go in cold, like to this extent. You have to qualify somehow.
So what's the better intro for people out there that want to get to know other people via LinkedIn?
Yeah.
What is the right way to do it, in your opinion?
I mean, well, you're asking me if they want to get to know them better. There's nothing wrong with that. Then you reach out and say, hey, Ben, I see that you're in relocation. I'm an immigration professional. I'd love to expand my network and learn more about what you're doing. Right. So like A, I've used your name. B, I've clearly said that I've looked at your profile. C, I made a connection to me because I said relocation, immigration, they're, kind of similar. And then my ask was just connecting so I could follow your profile. It's very passive. That's if I just want to learn about you. I mean, there's nothing more to say. If I actually do want to sell to you, right? And I'm just like trying to be sneaky by saying like, hey, I just want to learn more. And then the second
I really don't care about you as a person.
I really don't care about you. Yeah. So, I mean, look, that's the reality, right? But just because you want to sell something to someone doesn't mean you also don't want to learn about them. So I think it takes more time, but the reality is you connect with them. You do genuinely learn about them. You ask them some questions. Maybe you just respond. You take 2 seconds, scroll through their recent posts or read through their profile and say something, literally anything about them. You start a conversation. You actually, if you're a really good salesperson, you will lead the conversation in a direction that will give you some clue as to where they are vis-a-vis your product or service. And once they give you that clue, you can say, oh, it's so funny that you say that. One of the things I do is XYZ that addresses the thing you just said. If you're ever curious, I'd be happy to tell you more. By now, you've spoken for literally 3 minutes. 3 minutes on LinkedIn, you can get a lot out of a person and like really connect. And they might say like, hey, cool, I'm not interested right now, but I'd love to learn more at some point. Or they might say, you know what, that actually does sound cool. And it's still the same service as you would have preached or you would have suggested in the very beginning. But because you created that buffer of sort of relationship,
you earn the right to do it later. You've built a relationship, right?
Exactly. I mean, the best thing to do is you connect with someone who you don't want to sell immediately. Yeah. Right. So, and there you connect with them and you say, would love to just connect with you and follow your content, whatever it is. And then you don't ever say anything to them. You just actually put out content that pulls them back towards you. That's the best, because then you're getting a hot lead of someone who's like, hey, Ben, I just saw your video on, for relocation. I'm actually looking to move somebody for my company. Can we chat? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you get that all the time. You're not out there selling necessarily, doing cold sales. You don't need to. You're telling people everything you're doing through your content.
I do. I get probably one move a month just off people on LinkedIn that just know people that are moving and they think of me first as exactly. The mover, So yeah, it definitely does happen. The other thing I would say too is if you're watching this, here's a quick tip, and you want to reach out to somebody, go to their profile, look at their posts, look at the things that they've liked or the comments that they've left. Form an opinion about what they've been doing out there in the world, their public self, and then tell them how much you appreciate or respect whatever they've done. Yeah. That to me has a 10x factor of being successful. When you say, if somebody were to hit me up like, hey, really love and relo, love to grab 15 minutes, versus people say, hey, have you ever thought about how video can make your marketing more successful? I'm like, no, actually, I've never thought of that. Why don't you tell me more about it?
Why don't you tell me more about video while I do a 5 days a week video show?
Exactly. Like how do you, if you're talking to me and you miss that, like you really don't know what you're doing.
But the fun thing is for me as a LinkedIn, as one of the things I do is like LinkedIn sort of coaching. When people reach out to me in the industry and I'm just like, does this work? And they're like, no, you're right. And I'm like, yeah, if you want, I can help you get better at it. And then I just flip it upside down. By the end of the conversation, they're my client. I love when, I mean, it doesn't happen often, but that's the best. That is the best.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I love that. Henry says LinkedIn is a give principle. You will get so much more when you engage with people, and parties will benefit.
Yep.
Victoria says something. So Victoria, straight up, I'm gonna be 100% honest. When you said this, I was like, is she talking about me? I think it's plain rude when I'm asked to like and share someone's post, but never give mine a like. Victoria wrote this. You were talking about something. I'm literally on my phone over here, like going through her post, like. I'm like, am I doing this to Victoria? I love you, Victoria. I'm sorry if I do this. Robert, what do you think about this right here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the idea of giving to each other. One thing that I was saying again, I didn't come up with this, but a lot of lawyers, especially, we sell our knowledge. And the idea of going out there and giving, whether it's through content or through your time, with comments or likes, feels like you're wasting your time where you should be making money. But the reality is, as lawyers, what we're really selling is access to us as individual, on an individual basis. So I think give as much as possible. Obviously, likes and comments are super easy to do. I mean, comments should be thoughtful. Likes are very easy. But then give with your content. Give in the sense that if you have advice that you would give to people, just put it out there publicly, and no one's gonna go out there, and no one's gonna, I don't know what the right way of putting this is. You're not going to shoot yourself in the foot by giving away your information for free. What you're doing is you're creating trust between you and your followers, the broader community on LinkedIn or wherever you are. And those people know that you're selflessly giving your information. And so if what you're giving them is all they need, which means that it's super high level, they're never going to be your client of yours in the first place. On the flip side, though, if you're giving them basic information, high level information, and then you just feed them with this thought, and eventually they're like, okay, I need to move finally, or I need LinkedIn support or whatever. I need an immigration lawyer. They're just going to come to you, and they're going to understand that you're an expert because they've seen your content. B, they're going to know that the information you've been giving them isn't enough for them to do it themselves, which means that they're going to value your time versus being one of those clients that's like, but can you do it cheaper? And which is the worst kind of client.
The more they know about what you do, the more they'll know they need to hire you.
Exactly. And if you follow that formula, that means you should just give away as much information as possible, which sounds like counterintuitive, but that is what works, because because that person, if they ever need to pay you, no information you've ever given anyone else will be directly 100% valuable to them, because that one-on-one is what they pay you for.
This is great. Let's keep going here. Fiona from Paris, what's up? Tim Quirk from Western New York, how's it going? Ben says to Roman, you're an innovator and progressive, but work a lot with U.S. immigration lawyers, and U.S. immigration law is, in my opinion, in need of urgent reform if you compare with countries like Canada, etc. In contrast, tech is about innovation, being progressive. How can you reconcile outdated and antiquated U.S. immigration law with a more progressive approach? We need more disruption. Is the U.S. bold enough to move things forward in the immigration sphere?
Great question. Those are compounded questions. So I objection, Your Honor. Objection, Your Honor.
Immigration tech company in the United States. The process.
Yeah. Well, so one thing that I'll answer that pretty quickly. I mean, that could be obviously a whole episode or a whole hour. Obviously, we can't control what the government does in the U.S. or anywhere else. What tech can do within the framework of what we have is a lot. You know what I mean? Like, if you think about it, a visa application for the most part still has to be printed out and sent to the government by mail. But the process of gathering the information, putting that petition together, exchanging, and talking to all the parties involved, that can be automated and digitized to some extent. So I think there are a couple of things we can do. Number one, we can continue to elect people that are going to be more progressive with immigration, or whatever that means to each individual person. Number two, we can hold our elected officials accountable in terms of the immigration suggestions and reforms that they propose. And sort of push it on the government side. And then on the flip side, we can make sure that the companies that are providing immigration services are as up to date in terms of technology as possible. There's so many people still working on really old, antiquated solutions when there are better options. They're just not leveraging them. So I think within our limited sort of immigration framework, there's still a lot in terms of technology that we can do. But then on the flip side, as a democracy, we need to, elect the people that are going to push things forward sort of in the grand scheme of things.
Sure. Makes sense. Hey, everybody, leave a like and a heart real quick for Roman. Love to take your comments and questions here. Got about 15 more minutes to see what we can do. Rory says, does one need to really brand oneself? Does one need to brand oneself? Will it help me get better jobs, better positions?
Rory, I don't know if you're giving me this layup, but thank you.
It's like dished you the rock. And
yeah. I'm already midair and like the backboard's right there. Yeah, of course. I mean, the answer is yeah. Like, so Rory, here's the thing.
Give an example. Tell them like real terms.
Well, here's the thing, Rory. You already have a brand. You have a brand. The brand is what people say about you and think about you when you're not around. It's the thing they remember about you. It's the thing, it's like you're the guy that, or, you're the person that, whatever. Then that might change. So brands also change. The reason that it's really important to have to be proactive with your brand, meaning you have, especially on LinkedIn, right? You're actually putting the picture you want, you're saying who you are and your title, your about section, your banner, your whole thing is because either you create a brand for yourself or other people create that brand for you. If you create the brand for yourself, you have control over what people think about you, what they know about you, and how the world sees you. Will that help you get a better job? Well, it depends if you're branding yourself effectively.
I mean, that's basically the interview process. That's what the interview process does for new jobs.
That's a great point. That's a great point. The interview process is like, tell me what you know and tell me what your brand is as a person, right? And that's a lot of like cultural fit, and that's a lot of like your willingness to wear many hats, right? It's all that kind of stuff is kind of your brand. And so if you can come out, if let's say you're in the job market, and you can come out and say over and over again, for example, on LinkedIn, I don't know, let's say you're a software engineer and you're a software engineer that loves to build platforms for, for nonprofit organizations. Like if that's your brand, say that's what you are. You're a nonprofit software person, right? And if you build that brand for yourself, you better believe that you're going to be able to get a job at your dream nonprofit as a software developer, because that's what you've told people that's what you are. That's what they're going to say about you.
I think you've sold Rory. He's already crafting his own brand right now. He's the guy that's a bit more handsome than Ben Cross. That's what he wants his brand to be. That's a low bar, Rory. I think you're better than that, okay?
You're lucky. You're lucky that Ben has such a big following that's actually probably going to get you a job.
There's so many employers that I've had in the past. It's like Ben was just a bit more handsome. Let's see here. We got some great comments coming in here. Let's see. Sounds like the Dress for Success book needs a revision based on today's work environment. That makes a lot of sense, actually. I think that'd be very interesting, Janet. Let's see here. Henry Dussois, the rainbow suit thing will work if you're very confident and have some social edge about you. Otherwise, you're more likely to look like a fool.
Yeah. So if I can say something about that, I mean, a lot of this comes down to confidence. I'll give you an example. Sometimes I talk to immigration lawyers, especially like a client of mine, for example, right, who has been practicing immigration law for 15 years, but they've never put anything out on LinkedIn. And we're working on content, and they keep like, they don't post, and they get back to me in a week and they still haven't done anything. And I'm like, what's the deal? And what it turns out is that they are nervous to put out their thoughts and their opinions in this sort of on this platform that they're unsure of. I think one of practical reason is that it just lives on the internet forever. Although, guess what, everybody, you can delete your posts and your comments, at some point if you want to. But what I go through this exercise with those people. I'm like, how long have you practiced immigration law? 15 years. Have you ever sat on a panel? Yes. Are you confident when you talk to your clients and you give them advice? Yes. Do you have employees who you teach, best practices? Yes. So do you think you're good at what you do? Yes. Why then are you nervous about putting your content out on LinkedIn? Right? It's this idea that it's maybe public or something else, but it all boils down to this fear of judgment and fear. And I think I think honestly, Ben, you and I talked about this probably last time, but like this fear of judgment is just the thing that cripples individuals and keeps them where they're comfortable. So for example, if you've never worn a rainbow suit and you think you're not the right person to wear that suit, well, then you're not going to be, right? We all know that
all the time. Like, Ben, you could pull it off. Ben, that hat, you could pull that off. I could never pull
right.
that off. What are you talking about? Just wear the hat.
Exactly. Just wear the hat. And look, it's easier said than done. This is self-work, right? This is work that you have to sit in front of the mirror and be like, I can wear the hat and the consequences won't hurt me. And the reality is you just have to just do it. Like, you just have to do it. What's going to happen to you if you wear a rainbow suit and you've never done that before? Are you going to lose your clients? No, they don't know you're there. Are you going to piss people off? Maybe. But to Ben's point, if you're going to piss someone off, then you're doing something good. But the likely reality is that people are going to love it.
So Jason, talking about pissing people off, Jason Rollins down there says Ben Cross, Lake Geneva 2019. That was when I dropped like 5 F-bombs on stage in a 5-minute period. Definitely pissed a lot of people off. Definitely offended a lot of people. Definitely will not get back invited back to speak there. But people are still talking about it and they're still thinking about it. And I haven't gotten totally canceled yet. So, I mean, I don't know, could be interesting.
Cursing is a whole nother thing. I'm a proponent of speaking in a way that is sort of true to you. I curse depending on the client or depending on where I'm at. I'll throw in some non-savory words once in a while. I don't really care. I guess that's the reality. I'm always like, I'm a New Yorker, forget about it. I'm going to say a bad word once in a while, but like whether or not that's I might just get worked up about something and just say the S word. God forbid. You know what? And I'm going to go ahead and say this. If you're with your kids, close their ears right now. You know what's bullshit about this whole situation is that people say this, and then you turn around and go to a bar with them, and then they talk like a sailor, right? Like, come on. Just because you're at work doesn't mean you can't express yourself when you're frustrated and when you're excited the way you do in your regular life. No.
Yeah, and I think that's what people are getting to here in the comments as well, right? In the end, you are your brand, so pretending to be something or someone else is defeating the purpose. It's also about honesty. Honestly, that longest. It's also honesty. I don't know, but yeah, I agree with you. Olivia says we all have perceptions of how we view others and what is or is not appropriate. What's important is that we remain authentic to ourselves. People will pick up on that and will appreciate it. It makes good business sense. But then other people are being very judgmental and saying we need to blur out the man bun. So there's people on both sides. It's a polarizing issue. Tim Course is jealous of the man bun. And frankly, Roman, you have hair in the exact spot where a lot of men don't have hair. So I think, I think you're winning right now.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah. So some insight here on leaving judgment at the door. She thinks that Farrell thinks that is the differentiator. I don't know. I like to judge. I try not to judge people. I like to judge ideas.
Right.
But always with the caveat I may be wrong. Right.
Yeah.
Chris goes on to say, GMI Rocket has been a great resource. Really learned a lot from this group, although I'm still fuzzy on how to get LinkedIn posts to trend consistently.
Yeah, big. That's a big one. Actually, I've been seeing. I'll give folks some real time tips of what I've been seeing on LinkedIn. Number one, I have not been getting notifications about a trending post on LinkedIn. If you are in the GMI Rocket group, you may have seen some of my my posts about this or my messages. What I have been seeing though, it's not that my posts haven't been trending, and what trending is and what benefits it brings is another discussion that a lot of people aren't really sure about. But basically the idea is if you have a post that gets a lot of comments, a lot of likes fairly quickly, and you have hashtags tagged in your post, it will trend in that hashtag, which kind of means it's like at the top, it's doing well. Some people who follow that hashtag will get a notification that says Ben Cross's post is trending in hashtag relocation, etc. I used to get those fairly often just because I post every day. I try to make them engaging, etc. For the past 2 months, I have not been getting trending notifications. However, LinkedIn has been sending trending notifications to my company page telling me that, hey, there's this post trending in hashtag immigration. Go check it out as one of my companies. And I click on the link and it's my post.
So what is that? And what does that mean? Like,
so it means a couple of things. Number one, it means that my post is trending and LinkedIn is not telling me as the user, as the person who created that post, I am not finding out that it's trending. Number two, it is LinkedIn through that, I think, activity is starting to push company page engagement a little bit by telling me to like or comment on something via my company page. So I've actually been watching that a little bit more lately because I post very infrequently through my company page and those posts do not do well. Right. And so that's why I continue to post 99% of the time through my personal. But for some reason, LinkedIn is saying, hey, here's,
company posts don't do well because people don't like to be advertised to. They like to hear from people. However, who spends money to boost posts? Companies. Right. And so I think what LinkedIn's trying to say is they're trying to almost counterbalance human nature, which is to say, we care what people are saying. We don't care what companies are saying, but LinkedIn is trying to like kind of prioritize the company. That's very interesting.
And that doesn't make sense because what they really need is people to be on the platform. And so they have to retool the platform to be more focused on content creators. They're doing it. They did it with live. They're doing it with stories. They're going to hopefully roll that out, right? They're playing with different things. I would love to boost a personal post, to be honest with you. I would pay money for that. I would love to pay money for personal post analytics.
Well, also because you're kind of more of a solopreneur. Is that? So, I mean, it makes more sense. If you work for Ford Motor Company and I'm Joe in engineering or Joe in marketing, you don't want Joe in marketing to be, that's interesting though. I agree with you though, philosophically. You want people to be engaged and you don't want to give people stuff they don't want to see, generally speaking. Jack has a great question here. How do we make sure that we don't get over LinkedIn, similar to what is happening with Zoom? That's a fantastic question, Jack. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, my instinct was they're very different, but when I really think about it, Zoom is it's a video, it's a collaboration tool via video, and LinkedIn really is a collab. It's not real time unless we're doing a LinkedIn Live, but it is a collaboration tool via text, really, because you're messaging back and forth. What I love about LinkedIn is that you can go off and then come back an hour later, a day later, and it's okay. So it's really on your own time. That's what I think. I also think this is a great question to content creators. How do we not get over it? We continue to create good content. I mean, Instagram continues to grow. Facebook continues to grow. I mean, they're shifting, and those platforms have figured out sort of other ways of doing what they do, but they continue to have content creators, you and I, everyone out here continue to put out stuff on those platforms, and then other people continue to read them and engage with them.
This is really fascinating. Speaking of engaging, and what's going on in the comments here is very interesting because there's a philosophical discussion about cursing, to curse, to not to curse, the authenticity versus the professionalism trade-off. It's very, very interesting. And it's also polarizing. People are very pro or very anti, well,
let me say this: a lot of my life philosophy was shaped by the late George Carlin, and so if you want a really fun and interesting discussion about curse words, go YouTube George Carlin's video about curse.
Are these the 5 words you can't say? Yeah. That bit, yeah.
I think it's,
or is it more? Or is it fewer now?
I think it's 7.
The 7 words you can't
say them, but I won't.
Let's see here. Janet says, I'm always nervous. Let's explore this as kind of our final little coup de grace here. Rory says, I posted my best professional dress picture because I figured LinkedIn was a business and professional site. I didn't want to post a picture of me in shorts and a Hawaiian shirt. Rory, whatever you show up, however you show up in real life, show up online, okay? Because like for me, right, people give me crap all the time because my LinkedIn headshot was like, 8 years old or something, right? And like partially I support Black Lives Matter, but partially I'm waiting on a better headshot, okay? And so people give me crap about this all the time, okay? And the point is, I think, make sure that you show up in real life the way that you show up online and vice versa. And I think you won't have a problem. So if you go to work every day and Johnny A is cool with the Hawaiian shirt, then rock the Hawaiian shirt on the LinkedIn thing. That's my take on that.
I mean, what I will say, Rory, is like make sure that the picture is good quality. like I would go in between the two. I mean, I don't know if you are always hanging out in shorts and a Hawaiian shirt. Maybe you are, but if you're using that as a little bit of a kind of a polar opposite, if you will, of being in a 3-piece suit, I think something in the middle works. I mean, if you look at my picture right now on LinkedIn, I haven't changed it. I probably will in the near future, but it's a picture of me hiking. It's in the winter. I have a beanie on, which I actually really don't see very often on LinkedIn. I actually partly did that, to be honest with you, because I already had long hair, and I didn't. And this was that thing where like I didn't want to offend people, quote unquote, by having long hair on my picture. And so I figured if I wear a hat, people can't tell. So there, it's just kind of a shaved, a little bit of scruff.
Yeah.
But I actually was asked to be on a panel once, and I sent them that picture, and they were like, "Do you have anything else by any chance?" And I was really upset, honestly, And I was like, "If you guys don't want this picture, I'm not going to be on your panel." And they were like, "Oh yeah, of course, no worries." And obviously I was on the panel, and it was just one of those things where I was like, wow, people really care. Like they had the chutzpah to actually email me back and ask me this because they're talking in front of lawyers. And then guess what? And I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back. I went to the freaking thing, and I did my thing, and I talked to them about whatever it is that we talked about. And it turns out that people like my, conversation, one of the best. Why? Because I'm real. I'm not coming there as like to whom it may concern. My name is Roman Zelichenko, and I'm here to talk to you guys about being a lawyer. No, I came there like a person. Like you said, I brought my full self, and people liked that and resonated with it. And, sorry, my picture reflects who I am a little bit more than the next person. Turns out it's probably a good thing, but I got shit for it. There you go. To all the fanatics. You're welcome.
I love it. Jason talking about his first intro to me in Lake Geneva was me cussing, and he's still a big fan. That's funny. Henry Duswell, +1 for the cursing. Let's be real. Andrew Bruzy, authenticity is key. Never blur the man bun.
Thank you, Andrew.
Bun. Yeah. Tracy Denora, good afternoon. That's great. Now, and I think it's Farrell, right, is offering a contrasting point of view. I think entering into a new professional relationship, you need to be professional. Cursing has no place. Don't deny your thoughts or feelings, but feel out your customer first.
Yes, I agree. And this is actually an interesting point. I think this goes, and I know we're over a few minutes, but with anything, right, feel out your customer first. But that's if you're doing a direct sale, right? So if you're coming in and you're trying to get into a new relationship, and you're sort of, nothing about the person, and then more importantly, they don't know anything about you. Yeah, I would say like tone it down and just get a feel for the person. I mean, that's just good interpersonal communication. On the flip side, though, if you're a content creator, for example, and you're constantly putting out you, and that you is has curse words in it, if that person is starting a relationship with you, they probably have seen your content. And so you should continue to be who you always have been through your content and not now censor yourself, because then the question is, well, is your content genuine? Are you genuine here? Like, what's the deal? So, Farrell, I agree with you. If there's no prior knowledge of that person, if that person doesn't have prior knowledge of you, yes, you should be as respectful as possible, feel them out and see what they're comfortable with. But I think if they are coming into it because they've seen all of, 100 of your posts on LinkedIn, and you've cursed and, or like just haven't been super buttoned up in 75 of them, I think it's okay to come in as you are and like realize that they're probably talking to you because of the things that you've been putting out, not in spite of those things.
Sure, for sure. And I think one of the things that she outlines here is entering into a new professional relationship. I think new is the key, right? To your point, is there a body of work there that substantiates you as a professional otherwise, or is the first word you're saying to them, effing great to meet you?
Right.
And it's like, so I think those are very different, scenarios, right? And
yeah.
So I think you have to build up that credibility and that social currency to be able to take it there, which ironically was what my presentation in Lake Geneva was about, social currency. And I was hoping to illustrate that. And I was hoping that I had enough social currency in the bank with the audience to get away with dropping 5 F-bombs, actually 3 verbally and 2 on screen in writing, which I also realized is actually a different thing too. And actually at the end of it, I realized who my friends were and who my friends weren't based on how they responded to that, who I had social currency in the bank with and who I did not.
But Ben, can I ask you this? How many of them have a show right now on LinkedIn?
That were on that? Probably 0. Yeah, I think 0 is the number, I think. Yeah, no, you're right. 0 is the number. Jamie, which day of the week or time is best to post to reach maximum audience?
Great question. It used to be based on data that was analyzed by these marketing companies, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, wherever you are in your time zone, or like work days, not, sort of work days, work hours. But COVID, I think, has thrown that into a loop. Some of my best performing posts have been posted on Saturdays. I've had posts that I've put out at 6 p.m. that have done really well. So I think it's better to just do it when your target audience is just awake reasonably, right? Like, don't do it in the middle of the night, because then by the time people see it, it'll be 4, 5, 6 hours later. But I wouldn't worry too much about whether you're posting at 10 a.m. or 3 p.m. Just make sure it's good. One trick is when you're just getting started, and if you don't have a lot of people who are commenting on your stuff, go find like 3 to 5 close friends who know that you're trying to get, grow your presence on LinkedIn, and tell them, hey, for the first 20 posts that I'm gonna put out, I'm gonna send you a link. Do you mind just giving a little bit of love? And I think that really also helps boost your algorithmic standing, if you will.
For sure. And Jamie, to Victoria's point, make sure that when you ask for the love, that you give the love back too, and that you comment and like on theirs as well. Great stuff. You can also Google the answer to this, Jamie. There's actually, depending on platforms, there's actually like graphs and stuff.
Yeah, that's the one that showed that like Monday through Friday, like 10 a.m. was the best for LinkedIn. But again, that was all pre-COVID. That's like 2019 data. Yeah, right now people are just on all the time.
They're on all the time. Yeah. Very interesting. Let's see here. People are agreeing. This is what's interesting also about having such a long show. People are like, why is it so long? Maybe if you cut it down or whatever. But we get to like the bottom of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like cursing bad or good. Let's take a vote. 70% of people say it's good. Okay, it's good now. Like we get into the nuance of, well, it's not good if it's the first thing you say, but it's okay after you built up a body of work. Like we've established, I think, guidelines that are a lot more thought out than good or bad, you know? So, and then I love it. And then by the end of it, because we're all reasonable professionals, and this is the true difference, in my opinion, besides LinkedIn, between LinkedIn and Facebook, is that at the end, we can still come together and respect one another's opinions. And so Farrell's saying here, love your commentary, Ben. Thank you. Even though we might be kind of slightly different, in our thought process here. I think it's cool that we still kind of come together as a community. Olivia says, love it. It's so damn refreshing seeing realness.
So that the word damn was a curse word for a long time, and might still be in some households.
I think it is.
So there you go.
It's a light curse. It's a dip your toe into the room kind of curse. But I want to ask you, Roman, I want to give you the opportunity for like kind of a final word.
Yeah.
Over. I could talk to you for hours, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time here. Kind of, is there a thought or something that you want to leave us with here today, or something maybe we hadn't touched on, or some way you want to encapsulate what we've discussed?
I mean, it's like a lot. I want to say for everybody who's watching, if you're on LinkedIn, or I guess there are a lot of folks here on Facebook as well, just stay engaged and like continue to connect with people. It's not the same right now as it was during COVID times, but you touched on this in the very beginning, Ben, and one of the ways that I really am able to get through to people in terms of how to use LinkedIn is to think about it as a 24/7 networking event. If someone leaves you a comment on your post, imagine every time you post something, imagine that post is a panel that you're doing, a very, very tiny microcosm of a panel that you're sitting on, right? Because when you're putting out any kind of content, that's true. That's not just a link to a website or something. If you're putting out your thoughts or ideas or opinions, you're essentially a thought leader, right? You're literally leading with your thoughts. And so think about it from this perspective. Every post of yours is a panel, and every comment is like, if you've ever been on a panel, after the panel is over and you're packing up your stuff and everyone's going to the next thing, there's always like 3 or 4 people, being like, oh, thank you, that was such an interesting thing. If someone says that to you, even if they just say that's such an interesting thing, would you just be like, no, you wouldn't just do that. I mean, that would be weird. Worst if you just ignored them completely. I mean, can you imagine someone's like, oh, really amazing. You're just like folding up your stuff and putting in your suitcase. And you're like, this person's a jerk. Right. So yeah, put yourself in that human space. And so if someone says great post or really interesting, say thank you. It's okay to just say thank you. If someone leaves you a thoughtful comment, right? If someone's like, Ben, really interesting conversation. That thing about cursing was fantastic. I actually think cursing is great. And I've been cursing my whole life since I was a kid. I used to get beat for it, but now I'm the CEO of a company and life is wonderful, right? Like if they gave you all that background, would you just say like, cool? No, you'd probably like give them a little bit about, you would kind of counter. So in real life. And so my biggest thing is, if you're using LinkedIn, just think about that and interact with people on here as you would in real life. That is the best foundational advice that I can possibly give to anybody.
Yeah, this is actually real life. It just looks a lot different.
Yes, exactly. It is real life. It is real life, because when I type to you, Ben, I'm talking to you, just we're virtual. And the only way I can do it is by, hitting my fingers against the keyboard. But I would be saying the same thing to you in person. And so it is life. I mean, you're right. It is life.
Yeah, this is great. And to end it on a light note, Carol comes around here with the shit. Hey, you know what? That's awesome. You guys are the bomb. I really appreciate the community. The community's awesome. They don't take themselves too seriously, yet they're really smart, accomplished global mobility professionals, just like you, Roman. Roman, thank you so much for being here today with us, sharing your knowledge, your insight. Really appreciate it. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, everybody, so much. Appreciate you all as well.
Take care, everybody.